Hello and welcome to Centre Pass, your weekly video podcast of the ANZ Championship. Well, we're up to round 10. There's 3 weeks until the final series. The competition is certainly heating up. Lots to talk about today, and to help me through it all is 1HD sideline reporter and former Australian Under-21 representative Sarah Ashmore. Sarah, welcome along.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Well, lots to talk about today, Sarah. We'll review round 9 of the competition. We'll preview round 10. We'll talk a lot about the Queensland Firebirds with the season-ending injury happening to their captain, Lauren Nurse. We'll also have a preview of the race towards the finals. But Sarah, let's start talking about round 9. It was a huge round, a few upsets and a few surprises in there as well.
It was an absolutely massive round, Dan. It was so exciting to watch. 3 really big games in there that I found really exciting to watch from the sidelines. The biggest one for me was the Fever Mystics game, which ended the round on Monday night, and it was just a fantastic game to watch. Mystics came away with their first win on Australian soil, and Fever just missed out again.
Absolutely huge for the Northern Mystics, and crucial they got that win on Australian soil. Let's have a look at all the scores from round 9 of the ANZ Championship. So round 9 began on Thursday night with the Northern Mystics defeating comfortably the Canterbury Tactics. The Steel then knocked off the Tactics on Saturday. The Vixens, 55 winners over the Thunderbirds 53 in one of the great games of the round. The Queensland Firebirds, in a bittersweet victory, knocked off the Central Pulse comfortably. The Swifts then got over the top of the Magic in New Zealand, a great win for the New South Wales Swifts. And then that last game of the round in Monday night in Perth, with the Northern Mystics coming from behind to defeat the Fever by 2 goals. So Sarah, let's talk about that game in New Zealand. The New South Wales Swifts taking on the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic. The Swifts got over the line, but the Magic are a little bit below par, but it was a great win for the Swifts.
It was a great win for the Swifts, and they really set it up in that first half. They had a big lead going into the third quarter. I thought that the most positive signs for the Swifts in that game was that Kath Cox and Moni Gerard, probably 2 of their most influential players, were at their best, and I think that's a really good sign for them going into finals. But what wasn't a good sign was that they let that lead go in the second half, which is something they've had a problem with throughout the season. So conflicting signs there. I think it is a positive going into finals, but they just need to finish off the games.
They won the second quarter 18-8, which really set up their performance. Do you think, based on their performance in the first half, that they may have turned the corner a little bit this year?
I definitely think they've turned the corner. They seem to be a little bit unsettled in that first half of the season, especially in the goaling circle. I think it took them a little while for Pratley and Cox to find their form together, which is a bit bizarre seeing as they've been playing together for so long. But I do think they've turned a corner, and there's a big chance they could finish quite high on the ladder. Well,
they were sitting in 5th before that round. They've jumped into 4th on the ladder now, but there is every chance they can finish 2nd. They win that first semi-final, they potentially could host the grand final.
And that is a massive thing for Sydney, because they have a really strong home crowd up there. We've played in front of the home crowd before, and it's really hard to compete with that sort of noise. So if they can lock in a home crowd for that final, then they're really giving themselves every chance of making it all the way through until the end of the series.
The game you enjoyed mostly was the Mystics and Fever on Monday night in Perth. It was a must-win game for the Mystics on Australian soil. It was the first time they ever did it, but they took it the hard way to do it, and the Fever were so close of getting the upset.
They did. It was really upsetting for the Fever, I thought. They played so well for most of the game, and a couple of their players have really played themselves into form. Amara Boise, Sarah Ebbett, Caitlin Bassett are playing absolutely fantastic at the moment. But the Mystics, for them, really positive signs that they could come back and pull that victory off. And I thought their defensive end in that last quarter was the intensity was just fantastic, and if they can take that into finals, then they're a definite contender.
We were looking at some of the stats surrounding the West Coast Fever. They've lost 4 games by under 4 goals, 2 by 1 goal, 1 by 1 goal, 1 by 4. If they would have won those games, in all those games they had the ability to win, they potentially could have been challenged for a top 4 spot this year.
I know, it's pretty hard to believe that they could be that much further up the ladder than they are at the moment, and I think it's credit to the really young, talented players that they have in there, but they're also the reason why they've lost these games by such small margins, because they just can't finish it off. And as I was saying to you earlier, it's really hard for them. The more that they lose these games by 1 or 2 goals, the harder it's going to be for them when the pressure comes on in the next game to finish the game off there, because it just mounts, the pressure mounts, and when their goalers get the ball with 2 minutes to go, and in their head they're going to be thinking, we lost this game by this much last time, and it's just going to make it that little bit difficult for them, but I think next year they're going to be a contender.
Yeah, it's been another tough year for the West Coast Fever. Well, speaking of the finals, we'll have a look at the competition ladder in a moment, but the Queensland Firebirds are probably going to finish on top. They've got too many points ahead of the other teams, but there's still 5 teams to make up 4 spots, and no one's guaranteed out of those 4 teams. It's going to be very interesting, isn't it?
It is. There's 5 teams that could potentially make the top 4. So ANZ Championship couldn't have asked for a better way to finish the season. You've got a mix of 2 New Zealand teams, 3 Aussie teams that could play finals. And I just can't pick who the top 4 are going to be. It's really going to come down to that last round, potentially, that game between the Vixens and the Swifts. So it's been a fantastic end to the season.
Well, it may come down to percentage as it has in the last couple of years of the ANZ Championship as well. Well, let's have a look at the competition ladder and how it stands after 9 rounds of the competition. There are the Queensland Firebirds on top, 10 from 10, looking unbelievable at the moment. They're 20 points, 6 points clear of the Northern Mystics in second, then it's the Vixens and the Swifts. Sarah, anything in that top 10 surprise you?
I think the Mystics have really snuck up on me there. I knew they were in the mix, but all of a sudden they're sitting in second, and that's the surprise for me. And it looks like they will potentially stay in that top 4. Looking through the next few rounds, they to me feel like the team that potentially will be more secure in that top 4 than, say, Swifts and Vixens. So I guess they've been the surprise, but watching them play on Monday night, it's not a surprise because they're in great form.
Well, one of the biggest news stories of the week, and obviously one of the biggest news stories of the year, it's been huge the last couple of weeks in netball. First, we lost Sherelle McMahon to an Achilles injury. Just this week, we lost Lauren Nurse to an ACL. So she's out for the rest of the season, having ruptured her anterior cruciate ligament. So she's out for the rest of the season for the Firebirds. She's also out for World Championship. That's a huge blow for the Firebirds.
I think it is a big blow for the Firebirds, but I feel like they have the talent behind her to fill that gap. But it's a huge blow for Lauren. She's been playing so well this season. She's been with the Firebirds for a long time now, and this is the first time they've really tasted success. So I do feel really sorry for her in the fact that she will miss this final series. And also this was the year that she potentially could have secured a starting lineup spot with the Aussie Diamonds. So it's absolutely devastating for Lauren Nurse, and I do feel for her. But the Firebirds do have the depth, I think, to cover her spot.
She is the captain as well, so that's going to come into consideration. So it's tough to lose not only one of your best players, but to lose your captain is devastating. So we wish Lauren Nurse all the best. What's concerning, I guess, for the Firebirds is the fact they have used Alyssa McLeod and Chelsea Pittman throughout that mid-court, so they do have options, but they've both been playing with Lauren Nurse. They haven't been playing together. How much of an impact do you think that's going to have towards the rest of the season?
I think it will only be an initial shock for the lineup. I think the game against the Vixens on Thursday, they'll be trying to find their feet. They haven't played together, as you said, McLeod and Pittman. So I think that initial game could be tough for them, but McLeod's ready to step up in that centre role. She's been playing fantastic when she's been given the opportunities. She's that little bit older than normal rookies, and her defensive pressure is fantastic. And Pittman has shown every game that she's ready to take that role on. So I think that come finals time, they'll be ready to play together, but it just might be this first game and the game after where they're sort of finding their feet a little bit playing together.
After Sherelle McMahon went down, Vicky Wilson, former Australian captain netball legend, said that all teams in the top 4 were just one injury away from it all falling apart, which is so true, because if an injury happens to one of your big guns at this time in the season, it's very hard to replace them. At least with the Firebirds, McLeod has been tested at this level.
That's right. Jenke's been really smart, Rosalie Jenke, playing her bench. A lot of the top 4 teams tend to play the same 7 players week in, week out. But Rosalie Jenke's been really smart. She's been playing Alyssa McLeod nearly every game. So Alyssa's ready to fire. And I guess it's not so much like the Sherelle injury, where Sherelle is a really, really big focus point for the Vixens. And Nurse is a big focus point for the Firebirds. But Aitken's probably a bigger focus point, and Geitzy. So I think that Firebirds will be able to fill that role. And it is sad to see 2 of the game's greatest players go down, but then you see people like Tegan Caldwell step up, and Alyssa will step up, and you see 2 great players come into the game.
Well, it's going to be a big test for the Queensland Firebirds on Thursday night. Let's preview all of the games for round 10 of the ANZ Championship. Round 10 will begin in Brisbane on Thursday night, where the Queensland Firebirds will take a rematch against the Melbourne Vixens. The Magic will take on the Tactics. Saturday afternoon netball will see the Adelaide Thunderbirds host the New South Wales Swifts. On Sunday, the Fever will host the Vixens in Perth. The Steel will host the Magic. Monday night netball will see the Tactics host the Pulse. And of course, the New South Wales Swifts taking on the Northern Mystics in one of the biggest games of the round. So, Sarah, let's talk about the big game on Thursday night in Brisbane. Channel 10 are flying you up to report courtside. It's going to be huge, the Vixens and the Firebirds, but the interesting thing will be both teams for the first time head-to-head without their captains.
That's right, and I can't pick a winner here. I think that both teams are in good form at the moment. As I said earlier, I think the Firebirds will be struggling a little bit in that centre court, just trying to find that relationship between Pittman and McLeod. But they're so strong across the court, and the Vixens are playing really well. Caldwell stepped up so well into Sherelle McMahon's spot. So I can't pick a winner in this game, Dan. I think it's going to be a fantastic game, and I'm so excited that I get to go up there and be courtside to watch it.
Well, I'll try and put you on the spot in the next one, the New South Wales Swifts and the Northern Mystics. The Mystics would have to be a chance, but they're going to have to play a lot better than what they did on Monday. If the Swifts bring the form that they did against the Magic, they should be very hard to beat.
This game could potentially decide if the Swifts make the top 4. So it's a hugely important game for the Swifts. They're confident. Both teams are coming in with huge amount of confidence. Mystics know they can win on Australian soil, which is so important coming into this game. Swifts know they can beat the top New Zealand team. So again, I can't pick this one either. I think that the Swifts may be a little bit too strong on home soil, but the Mystics, if that defensive end of Rasmussen, Scarlett and Cullen come together and play as well as they did in that last quarter, then they could cause some problems for the Swifts goalers.
It's probably worth noting too that the Mystics probably have, after this Swifts game, the easiest run home out of any team in the top 4. If they knock off the Swifts, they should lock down second place. They then play the Tactics and the Steel. So they could be looking at a top 2 finish with the potential to have a home grand final if they can knock off the Firebirds.
That's right. They, for me, feel like the most secure team outside of Firebirds coming into this final series, and I think that they potentially will lock in that second spot. So as I said, they've come from nowhere, and it's great to see. Magic has really been the only New Zealand team that's been contending finals in the last few years. So it's great to see another strong New Zealand team up there, and they're really coming into some good form. So it wouldn't surprise me if they end up second on that ladder, Dan.
Time now to talk about our Best Young Player of the Year award. It's our second nominee this week. Chelsea Pittman was our first, but Sulu Tone Fitzpatrick from the Magic, Sarah, is our next nominee.
And she's an exciting player. Watching her against the Swifts, I really enjoyed her in action. Her intensity is fantastic. She went for an intercept at one stage and ended up in the crowd. So I loved watching her play, and she doesn't seem fazed by playing on some big goalers. She's played on Sherelle McMahon this year, Caitlin Bassett, Catherine Cox, and she's done really well in all games. So she's a deserved nominee.
Yeah, it was a terrific tumble over the players' bench into the crowd by Fitzpatrick in that game against the Swifts. She's only 18 years of age too, so it's a great sign for the depth of netball in New Zealand. Sarah, also another big announcement this week, of course, McMahon's out of the World Championships and Natalie Von Berto has been appointed the new Diamonds captain. Yeah,
I don't think there's any big surprise there. We thought that she would step up into that role, and like Sherelle, she's not overly vocal, but she's a leader on court, and I think she deserves this captaincy. She's a great player. She's the best centre that we have in Australia, and she really does lead by example. She's a really fair player, and she puts 110% into every game. So I think it's a well-deserved captaincy to Nat Von Berto.
And of course, the vice captaincy will be announced once the team of 12 is selected in May. Well, Sarah, thank you very much for joining us today. I've got to ask you, do you have the iPhone and do you have the ANZ Champs iPhone app?
Yes, to both. I have the iPhone, and of course I've got the app on there. Keeps me updated, scores, draw, everything I need to know about ANZ Championship, and it's going to be good coming into these last couple of rounds when I need to find out exactly who wins and where coming into the top 4.
Good on you, Sarah. It's been great to have your company today. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Make sure you keep a tune of the 1HD website as well, and also the ANZ Champs website for all the latest news and topics of netball throughout the world. And make sure you tune into Sky Sports in New Zealand and, of course, 1HD and 10 in Australia. Well, that is another episode of Centre Pass. We'll catch you next week. Goodbye for now. This podcast is brought to you by ANZ,
Holden,
Office Max,
Sky Sport,
10
and 1HD.